Hello there, YouTube. So, I wanted to get back on camera and just chat a little bit about, corporate greed, frankly. One of the things that is a truism of this world is that corporations are greedy. They are not your friend. They don't care what you like. They don't care what moves you, what matters to you. They only care about money. That's all they've ever cared about. If the recent video I put up on ONE D&D is anything to go on, a lot of people have realised this, at least in the role-playing field, and are rebelling. But they're not the only example. What we need to do is we need to remember that there are loads of different communities, small communities, that can get together and work together. Now, if you look at my channel, you'll see that it's a mixture of videos about tabletop gaming, video games, and most of all, reading and books. That's the thing I've covered the most on this channel. I don't have a particular direction for the channel. I just talk about the things that come to me, the things that I care about. It's just a me channel, basically. So, I don't have any plans. I'm not trying to make it big. I'm just doing this as a small hobby. The last video I uploaded, which was my video about ONE D&D and the way Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro are trying to milk the community for as much money as they can, has been my most successful video on this channel by quite a long way. In one day, it has doubled the views of the next most popular video on my channel, which gives you an idea as to how much people are looking this up. I'm not the only person making a video about this. There's been dozens, if not hundreds, of videos about this very topic because people really care. The backlash has been enormous. Now, I said a few things in that video that may have been a little on the sketchy side. Things like when I said that Wizards of the Coast do not own the Beholder and the Mind Flayer. And I stand by, they do not actually own those creatures. They own the name Beholder and the name Mind Flayer, and they own the specific artwork. If you made an exact replica of that monster and renamed it, you would probably not get away with it. But the thing is, those monsters are close enough to things that are publicly available that you could pretty much copy it without a problem if you just copy the broad strokes. Let's take the Mind Flayer, for example. The Mind Flayer is a Cthulhu-like, squid-faced psychic monster that eats brains. It's hyper-intelligent, and it enslaves people. That is very clearly a Lovecraftian monster. You just change its design ever so slightly, don't make it look exactly like the image from Dungeons & Dragons, and you're fine. A Beholder, it's a large mass of sinew and muscle, somewhat spherical, that floats somehow, that's covered in eyes and teeth. Well, that's not that dissimilar from the description of a biblical angel. Spinning rings covered in eyes, set it on fire and it's a biblical angel. Like, these things are not copyrightable, not really. What they are is concepts, and unless you copy them exactly, you're probably fine. That's the thing. The only way that something like Wizards of the Coast can impose their rules is if we lack creativity. When I say that they don't own anything, they don't own their mechanics, they don't own their monsters, they don't own any of their races, anything like that. What I'm saying is they don't own any of the broad strokes. If you copy something outright, then you're just playing their game. And yet, they're going to call you on it. And you're probably not going to get away with that. But let's face it, we all homebrew anyway. We're not going to be playing their game. And that's the point that I was making, is I already homebrew enough of the system settings that it's slightly different in almost every aspect anyway. My base game doesn't even use 6 attributes, it uses 8. So, that gives you an idea as to how different it can be. All you would need to do is change a few things around, move a few things around, and you'll have something that's distinctly different enough that you will be able to say, no, this isn't D&D, and there's not much they could do. They have tried to reinforce their copyright in courtrooms before, back in the age of AD&D, and they didn't get very far. The same happened with Hasbro with Monopoly. They tried to copyright Monopoly as a concept, and whilst they could copyright specific names and the Monopoly Man, they couldn't copyright the concepts. They couldn't copyright the mechanics of moving around the board, of landing on property and buying it, of using money, of rolling 2 6-sided dice. They couldn't copyright any of that, because mechanics cannot be copyrighted. It's the same reason video games work the way they do. It's why as soon as Dark Souls made it big, there was 1 million Dark Souls clones, because it doesn't matter what the mechanics are, they can't be copyrighted. From Software cannot own the idea of a third-person action game where the shoulder buttons are used for attacks that has a really high difficulty curve. That concept is not theirs. It's just a concept, and they can't stop other people from using it. Now, there have been examples of video games where they have been able to do that. A good example is the Nemesis system from Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor, where the AI would learn from you and would react to you. The thing is, whilst that exact system has not been used by anyone else, that's been done in other places. That's been done because there have been games where you've had rivals or you've had regular enemies that remember you and change their tactics accordingly. The Pokemon games did that, where your rival would have different Pokemon depending on who you picked as your starter. So having a rival that changes its tactics based on previous encounters with you, that's been done. It may not have been done in quite the same way as the Nemesis system, but it has been done. And it's never been challenged in a courtroom. When they patented that system, no one thought to actually just try and do it and put their own spin on it and see if it would stand up in a courtroom, because I guarantee it wouldn't. But that's not the point. My point is that corporations are greedy, and they are always going to be greedy. Corporations are an entity unto themselves. All they want is to grow and consume and grow and consume, and it doesn't really matter how we set them up. A corporation will take on a life of its own. So we should, as communities, club together. If the tabletop community can react like this to ONE D&D, I don't see why other communities can't do the same thing. The gaming community had a similar reaction with Nintendo. Nintendo, a while back, tried to do the Nintendo Partnership Program, where they claimed ownership of not just Let's Play videos, but reviews and critical analysis videos. Things that are very much in the fair use side of YouTube. That they're very much the kind of thing the public has every right to make. But Nintendo didn't care, and they tried to claim ownership of everything. You stick a tiny bit of Nintendo footage in something, and they still, to this day, try to claim it. There was a scandal about an anime critic who had his entire channel claimed because of the stupid copyright laws in Japan, where they basically just did what the hell they wanted. They claimed all of his videos, and there was very little he could do to stop it. It ended up going directly to YouTube for them to make a decision, because it was such a telling problem, and it caused such a big backlash. One big backlash that's happening right now, and I think this is going to be a slower burn, but I think this is going to have the same kind of effect that the OGL ONE D&D thing is having now. And that is that Amazon is currently screwing over writers, especially indie writers. Now, as I say, I make a lot of BookTube videos, and BookTube have been talking about this, but it's not really made it big. Not many people have mentioned it. Daniel Greene made a video about it, and no one else seems to be covering it. No one else is outraged and talking about this in the same way that the tabletop community. There's a flood of videos of everyone saying, no, the OGL is wrong and we're not going to support it. We haven't had that on BookTube for Amazon, and I don't understand why, because we should. What Amazon are doing is Amazon are currently offering a 40% share on audiobooks through Audible. Now, if you're trying to get your audiobook out there, Audible is by far the biggest marketplace. But if you're not exclusive, you only get 25%. 25% is pathetic. Digital media, as a standard, pays 70% royalties to its original creator. It doesn't matter if it's a game on Steam, or if it's music on iTunes, or if it's, well, basically anything else, really. It doesn't matter what marketplace you look at, 70% is the standard. Apps on the App Store, for example, they pay 70%. So when you then go to books and you find that audiobooks only pay 40%, and if you don't sign away exclusive rights, you only get 25%, the writers are getting screwed. They are getting completely screwed. And it's one of those as well where you can't go somewhere else. If you're being published by Tor or Macmillan or Simon & Schuster, it doesn't matter who you're being published by. Penguin even. Right? All of these companies, you ask them, when it comes to the audiobook, they'll be going through Audible. So even if you're being published by Macmillan, Macmillan's a big name publisher. When you ask about the audiobooks, it's going to be going through Amazon. So you're going through Macmillan, but Macmillan aren't doing it independently. They don't have their own audiobook company. The physical book will get published independently, but the audiobook's going through Amazon. What this means is Amazon almost has a monopoly on this, because audiobooks are found almost nowhere else. You can get them on Spotify and Speechify, and there's places like Libby where you can get audiobooks there. But these make a very, very small portion of the audiobook market share. If you're not on Audible, you basically don't exist as an audiobook. And audiobooks are now more than half of all consumed reading. Now, I've criticised audiobooks in the past. I question how many people are actually listening to an audiobook and how many people have just got it on in the background and not really paying attention to it. I'm hypercritical on these things. But the fact is, if audiobooks are now going to be the main way that a significant number of people experience literature, then that means that Amazon have way too much power. And we should be taking an example from the reaction that D&D players have had to the open game license, to this ridiculous licensing that is happening on Amazon. And we should be supporting people like Brandon Sanderson, who's now refusing to put his books on Amazon through Audible because of the way that they treat their authors. He's a big, successful and rich author. He can afford to do that, but he's making a stand so that other people understand what the issue is, so that independent authors have other options. Because for most people who aren't Brandon Sanderson, they can't take that risk. They can't take that plunge. It's too big of a change for them. That the drop in profits, it would make it so that they simply wouldn't make enough money. They wouldn't be able to live off it. And in many ways, you could argue that's the market forces working. That Amazon, even though they only offer 40%, their 40% is worth more than the 70% from everyone else combined. And while that's true, that's not the point. What that tells me is that that's a monopoly and that Amazon should be broken up, frankly. That they are now actively breaching monopoly laws and antitrust laws, because no one should have that much control over a single area. So, that's something I want to talk about. I want to draw a parallel there. I also want to talk broadly to just the community here. Like I say, my last video got over 3,000 views in a single day, which is more views than I have ever had before. My videos get around 1 to 200 views. Not 3,000 views in a day, 1 to 200 views in a week or two. It's a small, tight-knit community here of just a few people chatting. It's, a little bookish nerd community that plays a bit of tabletop role playing, plays a few video games, and reads fantasy and sci-fi literature. That's what we are, and we chat and we communicate. And there's a nice little community going on. I vaguely, I'm on the edge of the BookTube community and all of that, which is again a small community where the average video gets a few hundred views across any of the channels of BookTube. There's a few bigger ones that get a few thousand. But 3,000 views in a day, That would be good for even some of the good booktube channels, some of the really high up ones, the biggest ones. Them getting 3,000 views in a day would be unusual for some of them. So this is a humbling number of views. I've got over 50 subscribers in one day, which again I think is the most subscribers I've ever had in one day. So welcome everyone who's new to the channel. Hopefully you'll find it interesting. Like I say, I talk and rabbit on about whatever comes to mind, but I'm going to be talking about tabletop gaming, fantasy and sci-fi literature, maybe the odd TV show, video games, that kind of thing. Nerdy, geeky hobbies, that kind of stuff. So if that's interesting, stick around. Maybe we'll have something interesting to talk about. I do have a few things I do want to talk about on D&D that I've been meaning to do for a while. And it's maybe a nice counter to the Backlash, because whilst I agree with the Backlash, obviously, I wouldn't have made a video if I didn't, I still enjoy playing games of D&D, and if I didn't, I wouldn't be so upset with them. So I'm going to put up a couple of videos in the next few weeks where I describe a couple of character builds I've enjoyed, a couple of games that I like, that kind of thing. Just talking about the gameplay mechanics and the things that I've had fun with. Some positivity in the community, not just the Backlash. Previously, my D&D videos have not really done too well. Like, we're talking sub 100 views. So it's weird to have this influx of people who will actually care about that kind of content. Other things that I'm going to be doing, I've got some new Folio Society leather-bound books, which I'm going to be reviewing on the channel. So if you want to stick around to see them, they are particularly gorgeous-looking books. So hopefully that will be of interest, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.